Let's turn to Poppy Coburn, who's assistant commentator at the Telegraph and has written for the title Charlie Kirk's Assassination is a Terrifying Moment for American Democracy. Poppy, it's fair to say that obviously this is his link to Donald Trump. Why is Trump so toxic? Good morning.
Good morning. I think I'm still in shock, and I think all of America is in shock at just this latest outbreak of political violence. It was only a year ago, less than a year ago, that Donald Trump survived an attempted assassination attempt while he was speaking at a Pennsylvania rally. What's happened to Charlie Kirk today? He was speaking on a college campus in Utah. This is his job. This is what he's known for. He's been doing this since 2012. He was actually speaking about free speech, as you can hear in those clips, which is so awful when the shot actually rang out, then rushed to a hospital and unfortunately did not survive. I think the political consequences of this in America are going to be absolutely catastrophic. The American right is already feeling that it's being under attack, in a metaphorical sense. Now it feels, you can say with confidence, that it's under attack in a literal sense. Because, you cannot underestimate how influential this man is. He was literally Trump's right-hand man. He was there at the inauguration. It was a massive fundraiser for the Republican Party. For him to lose his life in this shocking way is just appalling.
Who would want him dead?
Well, unfortunately, quite a few people. And there's actually been a video that's resurfaced, in the coming hours of him talking about the threats that he's been under for years, because he speaks on college campuses. He mentioned the threat of, radical activists that would come up. He had to have a massive security team wherever he went because of threats being made against his life on an almost constant basis. So he was very aware that he was a vulnerable target precisely because of his political views, precisely because he was someone that wanted to engage in open debate. The fact he would even go on college campuses and sit there despite being such a prominent figure and talk about what he believed in is quite something. It's just awful. This will have such a chilling effect on debate in America, and I think it's going to have reverberations around the Western world.
Poppy Coburn, assistant commentator at the Telegraph. Thank you. You've written a piece for the Penn newspaper. Just a slight correction. It was slightly over a year ago, actually, that there was the failed assassination attempt on now President Trump in Pennsylvania. That was back in July, so a little bit over. But thanks for all your input, Poppy. 12 after 7, let's turn to Scottie Nell Hughes, US political commentator, journalist. And I understand you were a friend of Charlie Kirk, so obviously commiserations, condolences. How would you describe the young man? Morning.
Energetic, inspirational, passionate, and definitely someone that was a light in a darkness and was not afraid to enter into any situation.
What did he deliver for President Trump?
He delivered the youth vote. Prior to Charlie Kirk coming on the scene in 2012, the Republicans were filled with people like Mitch McConnell, and that wasn't very inspirational. So Democrats had a chokehold on the youth vote, and Charlie Kirk from the very beginning said, Republicans, you've got to wake up. The youth vote in this party is the future. And so that is what he delivered. That's why he overwhelmingly did help President Trump, is because he made not only President Trump, cool or politically electable, he made him socially cool and made him a pop culture star, not only in 2016, but definitely in 2024.
Scotty, how did he do that?
It was real simple. He made conservatism very relatable. He made it as something that was more common sense. It wasn't just about numbers and cents and the bureaucracy of government and big government. He made it to where kids could, students could understand. And when they understood it, then they could actually grasp it. And he made it personal for them. Where Democrats have always had a great job talking about student loans and abortion rights and access to birth control, Republicans kind of stayed away from those issues. They wanted to talk, very in depth. They didn't want people to be involved. Charlie Kirk made the youth become engaged in politics and why they should be conservatives.
If you shared a coffee or a drink with him, what sort of guy was he?
Well, it's so funny. When I really knew him, he was very beginning, since he was so young with this movement, while others were out on spring break, he couldn't even come to the bar with us. He was actually very frustrated that he had to go back to his hotel room because he wasn't 21 years old when he started this whole mission to get the youth involved. But no matter what the topic was, he always brought it back to how important the next generation of voters were.
Lastly, Scotty, why is Trump so toxic?
I am so happy you asked this question, because I heard you ask the previous guest. I think a better question would be, why are those opposed to Trump so violent? And I think that's what we need to be asking right now. When you look at the attack, like you said, last year on Donald Trump himself, when you look at the continuous attacks on Trump supporters, why are people so violent when it comes to the Trump? Instead of having discussion, they go for guns and violence and knives and other ways of getting their message across.
Scottie, thanks for your time this morning. Commiserations on the loss of a friend. Scottie Nell Hughes, US political commentator and friend of the late Charlie Kirk. The LBC app is the Charlie Kirk story, a dark moment for America, quoting President Trump there. And let's give you a couple of American front pages. The New York Times, Charlie Kirk dies after being shot on a Utah campus. And the Washington Post, conservative activist Charlie Kirk killed at Utah college event. Luke's in Westminster. Luke, your reaction to this. Why is Donald Trump, it would appear, so toxic? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I hope you're doing well.
Good, thank you, sir.
I'd just like to say that Charlie Kirk was truly a great man, Nick. I follow American politics very closely, and I think the work he did was incredible. As for your question...
What made him a great man? Just briefly, why was he so inspirational in your view?
The way he could connect to the youth and interest them in politics, truly, is what I'd say, to get young people talking. But as for your question, I personally would say this isn't a case of Trump being toxic, but rather the media labeling Trump as a dictator, Nazi, fascist, and labeling his supporters as far right. And they're perfectly well within their rights, their First Amendment right to do so. But I would just think the rhetoric that we're seeing from both sides, I'd say, but especially from the media, has just been awful. It's been tearing me up. I mean, as soon as I heard Kirk had died, I tried to hold my tears back. But I saw news outlets like MSNBC and the New York Times pushing the idea that Kirk was hateful and divisive. For what? For exercising his First Amendment rights? I mean, how polarized can society get to
let me ask you, Luke,
people for this?
Luke, do you think the media has, and I'm sorry to use this expression in the way the man lost his life, but does the media have blood on its hands then?
Yes, I would say the media are complicit in what has happened and the polarization of the American Republic.
And why the violence towards Trump and any of his supporters?
Well, there's no other figure like Trump. I mean, that's why he was such a shock to everyone, not just the establishment and the left, but also the right. We were just taken aback when we saw Trump, and I suppose the reaction we're getting is it's just been exacerbated by the media, who are, in my opinion, fear-mongering over Trump and thus causing people to take such horrific actions like this.
Lastly, even as we're speaking, Mario has texted, Charlie Kirk was not a conservative, he was a MAGA, as in Make America Great, a MAGA cultist. How would you respond to that?
Well, I'd like to challenge him on that, because Charlie Kirk was actually quite skeptical of Trump, and he's formulated his views over time, and he's open to debate. He lets anyone debate anytime, anywhere. So I'd like to challenge people on that.
Luke, thank you for your input. Christopher from Southfield says Charlie Kirk wasn't a politician. He was a decent, young, 31-year-old US conservative guy with young children. He was never insulting nor disrespectful and taught college students to think for themselves, whereas college professors across the US and the UK almost force you into thinking and telling you what to think. When the political far left can't win the argument, they resort to violence far too many times, more so than their counterparts on the right. Callum in Stevenage. Callum, what do you want to say to this horrific news? Good morning.
Morning, Nick. You all right?
Yeah, good. I'm well, thank you.
Good. So in regard to what you said about why are people so violent towards Trump and his administration, I don't think it's fair to just blame the media. I think you're going to have to blame Trump and his administration. The amount of sort of hate they peddle and divisiveness day in, day out.
Okay. So they feed, what they do is, without realising, they fan the flames of the violence, you would say.
I think they realise what they're doing. I mean, no one's perfect. There's issues on the left. There's issues with the media. But, you know, Trump declaring war on Chicago, for example, then when a reporter says to him a day later, why did you do that? He says fake news. Everything's just about inflaming one side against the other.
Good Lord, we're only just 1 year. Sorry, we're not even 1 year into this president's term. What are the next years going to hold, do you imagine?
I guess we've got to wait until the midterms for that. But, you know, it's sort of, the caller saying people calling in a dictator and a fascist, but he is acting just as they are saying. So I'm not too sure. Again, watch the midterm, see what happens.
We will. Sarah, what do you want to say about the murder of this man? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Nick.
Hello.
I'm actually a school teacher, a history and politics teacher. So the last two callers have been particularly topical.
Right.
I was just reflecting as well that the murder of Charlie Kirk is terrible, but there was also a shooting in Colorado in a school yesterday at the same time. So I was also reflecting on the place of the Second Amendment.
Were people killed in Colorado?
No, 3 students were injured.
Right,
So thankfully they weren't killed. But the presence of guns and rifles, and I was actually talking to my students this week because we're learning about the establishment of the Constitution, of the setting up, and why the Bill of Rights exists usually reflected the fears of those individual states following a time of immense conflict in the Civil War.
Right.
That just doesn't really resonate today. So the reason the Second Amendment is there is because they kind of were saying we want these safeguards in place before we sign up to this untried new form of government in a world where those weapons are rifles they have to fill probably with a bayonet on the end. And that today there's now a police force. The government has been tried and tested. So I wonder if actually it's a time to reflect honestly about why the Second Amendment is still there.
How old are the students you work with, Sarah?
I'm a secondary school teacher, so I was talking to sixth formers.
So there's typically 16, 17, 18 ages. When they realise just how prolific guns, gun crime and school shootings are in the United States, how do these young people react?
They're a bit shocked and don't really understand why. I think from a British point of view, we're very much like, why do you feel the need to bear arms? And then, so what I try to do in my classroom is zoom in politically and try and understand why that was put in place in the first place, and understand that following that massive conflict, it was a very different historical environment. And then understanding, actually the first 10, the whole Bill of Rights actually is reflecting things that they don't want to happen again. So please don't take our land, please don't take over our form of government. We have the right to defend ourselves if this new federal government wants to take over our individual states.
Sarah, really enjoyed our conversation. Fascinating how it goes into the minds of young people. Good luck with the teaching you're doing. Thank you. That incident took place at the Evergreen High School. This is about 30 miles southwest of Denver. The suspected gunman shot 2 students who survived, but then shot himself as well. That's the events that Sarah was referencing.